legislature for this county. Education, $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion extra for public education, pre-K through 12. That is a significant advancement. Everyone here, I guess, knows that probably 12 years ago, 14 years ago, Florida was at the very bottom with respect to public education, pre-K through 12. Now, today, 6th in the nation. That doesn't mean that we've done all we want to do or that we can do. We still have the problem with respect to poverty in schools that don't have the kind of, that extra effort that we want to make with respect to those. But we are continuing to make Florida #1 in the nation. And not only that, as you may have seen, that there was a 4th grade test that was given worldwide. And Florida 4th graders came in 2nd in the world. Senator Hugel, Senator Thrasher, and I pushed very hard for extra funding for Volusia County Public Schools. There was even in the Senate budget an extra amount. There would have been an extra $1 million for Volusia County. But unfortunately, the House didn't pick up on that. It didn't do it. You know, there are a lot of things that they didn't do right.
Don't blame me.
But hey, there were a lot of things they did do right, too. So there are a lot of things they did right. All right, what about Citizens? Citizens Property Insurance Company. As many of you know, Citizens has 24% of the insurance market in the state of Florida. And since about 2007, what has happened is Citizens has grown to having about 1.2 million policies. And there's a view that says, well, gosh, Citizens must be something that's we got to keep it. We got to make sure we have it as an insurer of last resort. And that's what it should be, an insurer of last resort. But the problem is when you have 24% of all of the policies in the state of Florida, you basically have made Florida a self-insurer. That means that if there is a large hurricane, like a 1 in 100 year, or even a 1 in 50 year, like an Andrew that comes here, what's going to happen is it puts the entire state at risk. And how do I say that? And why do I say that? Because in the event there was a hurricane of that magnitude, there would be insufficient funds for Citizens to pay its bills. And you know, we demand that private insurance companies sell their policies that are actuarially sound. Unfortunately, Citizens has been selling actuarially unsound policies in their wind-only accounts. That means that Citizens is doing something that we would probably put a private insurer in jail for doing, and that's selling policies for less than it actually costs to make them. And if you do continue to sell policies for less than it actually costs to make them, it's going to catch up with you one day. There is going to be a hurricane, and there will be an assessment, because the way Citizens protects itself in the event that it doesn't have enough money to pay its bills is it assesses every policyholder in the state of Florida except for medical malpractice and workers' compensation. That means your homeowners, even though you are not a Citizens homeowners, will have to be assessed. That means that your car insurance would have to be assessed. And that means that if there were a 1 in 100 year storm that were to visit the state of Florida, and by the way, that's the standard we use for the viability of a private insurer, so that's a nice standard to use with respect to Citizens. So it's not unreasonable. As a matter of fact, it's practical and pragmatic to do that. Then what would happen is if you were a family of 2 adults, 2 children, and 2 cars, not unusual, you would be assessed $2,300 per year for the first year, and then it goes down in a sliding scale. Now that's a lot for any family to have to pay. As a matter of fact, if you were in Miami-Dade County and you were 2 adults, 2 children, and 2 cars, and you were a Citizens policyholder, where 58% of their policyholders are Citizens, what would happen is you'd be assessed $4,990 in the first year. Well, we can't take that. Nobody can take that. So it's critically important that we right-size Citizens and let the private market do what the private market is supposed to do, and that is absorb any kind of hurricane event. And that's what we took a great step forward in doing this year. As a matter of fact, what we did is without raising any kind of rates, we created a clearinghouse. And that clearinghouse is going to be one that if someone is going to go into Citizens, before that person goes into Citizens, they must go into the clearinghouse and see if there is available private insurance for the same premium or less than what Citizens is charging. And somebody say, well, that just makes perfectly good sense. That's practical. That's rational. Yeah, and it's amazing, isn't it, if the legislature would force somebody to do that. Well, the fact of it is do you know that out of the 1.2 million policies that Citizens has, about 217,000 of them are policies that are for an amount greater than what private insurance companies are already selling? In other words, through lack of ability to monitor what was going into Citizens, 200,000 of those policies that are in Citizens should never be there in the first place. There's cheaper private insurance. So we knew that we had work to do, and we did it. And so we have made a significant step in right-sizing and beginning the right-sizing of Citizens, because we know that if we reduce the number of policies that Citizens has, then in the event that there is an event, you will not be assessed for paying any kind of shortage that Citizens might have. I want to make one last statement to you, and that is about the Daytona Speedway and what I believe that helping that would have done. We have a firm believer that our state, our legislature, our government has the responsibility of enhancing the opportunities for business. It's one thing to go ahead and say, I'm going to not give you any restriction, not have undue restrictions on business. But it's important that legislatures, in fact, enhance the opportunity of businesses, and there's nothing wrong with that. And so I will stand with our other delegation members here to tell you that we will continue the fight to assure that Volusia County gets the protection and the opportunities that it deserves. And one of those, of course, is a bill that helps to foster and enhance the Speedway and its related facilities. So with that, I want to say to all of you, again, thank you. You have a wonderful delegation. You have a leader with Senator Thrasher and a leader with Senator Hugel, and of course with the House members. And as soon as they can finally beat somebody up to get the franchise bill, we'll be okay. You'll be okay. Thank you so much.
All right, this is going to be Q&A time. Just raise your hand if you have a question. Any questions?
Got one here.
Where? Oh, there. Oh, gosh, you've been in. All right, stand up.
Tell us your question.
All right. Daytona State has a great small business council that helps small businesses get an idea of how to start out. But it seems like it's hard to get to investors or funding for a new business. What would the state representative say about having an easier track to finding funding to start a new business?
Okay, funding
So
for
good
new
guidance.
businesses. Anyone want to?
I believe we have the UCF Daytona State Incubator sitting out at the airport that does an excellent job of providing the additional resources and the advantages of finding how to raise capital processes to make them more successful, would be my answer.
Go ahead.
Well, also at the state level, you have the Department of Economic Opportunity. They don't just also invest in current businesses, but also startups as well. So if you have a business plan and a business model, it will be helpful for you to go through the state's program to get certified, and then they can assist you with, or assist anyone into being able to establish a business and getting funding.
All right, next question.
I want to thank you very much for all your hard work and for being here today, and also for what you've done for education. I appreciate that. We all appreciate that. You all mentioned the DCD, and I know the chamber worked very hard in trying to get that DCD extra supplemental funding. Of course, it would be great if we get the formula changed, What can we do next year? I know the Senate passed the supplemental funding, but the House, it got stuck there. What can we do different next year, and is there a good possibility that might pass next year? Because we desperately need it for our kids.
Okay, thank you. Senator
Certainly, we knew that we couldn't go ahead and change the DCD, which involves changing the DCD is the district cost differential. That means for every dollar that goes up to Tallahassee to pay for education, then that it gets adjusted by the differential based upon cost of living adjustments. So that, for example, out of that $1, about 1.03 or 1.04 would go to Miami-Dade because their cost of living is more, and then 96 cents goes to Volusia County because supposedly the cost of living is less here. So for every dollar you pay, you don't get a dollar back here. And so the first thing that Senator Thrasher and Senator Hugel and I did was go to our chair of Education Appropriations and got a compression formula put together so that it would compress that difference between the higher amount and the lower amount, which resulted in about another $1 million to Volusia County. Unfortunately, the House wouldn't go along with that. Now, the answer to your question about what to do with respect to the DCD, I think it's time for us to have another study done on the DCD, and the only way that this will ever be done, because you can imagine the amount of territorial argument that goes on. It's a very, very divisive situation to change the DCD. Is, for example, to try to get Miami-Dade to take less so that Volusia would have more. You can imagine what that does. And so I do believe, however, it is time to have another study of the DCD so that we can see if there is a better formula or a different formula that would be used in determining what it is. But we'll not change the DCD until there is such a study.
Okay, let's let the House speak. Go ahead, Representative.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I sat on the Education Appropriations Subcommittee. I was the ranking member on that committee in the House. And most of you know that the House has to pass a budget, and the Senate has to pass a budget, but most of the time those budgets aren't exactly the same. We go into budget conferencing, and what Senator Thrasher pointed out to me that day was the fact that they had put this in, and to try to get the support from the members of the House to kind of accept that so that we would get it. Well, I went to our staff, I went to our chairs, and I went to just about everyone I could, but there was no support for it. And and the Senate did a great job in making sure that that was in there. But unfortunately, the House, it's not an easy job in the House. We've got 120 members and 120 different ideas. So we're going to try again.
Thank you very much. We'll work with you next year. And in the Senate, we have 40 members. Of course, what Senator Thrasher and Senator Simmons, I think, is the best. So that's all we need to listen to. Who's next? Yes. Stan.
Thank you. Dr. Margaret Smith has to be over in Tampa today. There's a state education meeting, but she asked if I would publicly express the thanks of the Volusia County School District and the Volusia County School Board for all the work that our entire delegation did on working with the DCD. And we just want to thank you again for all of your efforts for that.
She did a wonderful program on Monday. For those of you who were not able to attend, go to her Facebook page, which I posted on. She had a tour of the NICU unit and also the Child's Academy, which was, we met with young women there whose lives have just been changed and turned around.
Thank you, and I want to also echo the thanks for this past legislative session. It was a good one for children. I want to thank Senator Thrasher for your participation in Children's Week. Volusia County did receive a Community Innovations Award for our work with some of those programs. I also want to thank Eric Raimondo, who's the legislative assistant to Representative Santiago and Representative Santiago, House Bill 56 with the infant death bill. And I think you guys probably put volumes and volumes of work into this little bill, which changed language about how we respond to infant death. Thank you, Senator Hugel, for showing up to our Child Watch event.
I want to point out that just reminded me when I was there Monday, I was the very first graduation of Child's Academy, because I actually did the ceremony, and I helped with the Constitution. Yes, and that's when they were in 2 trailers on the land of Atlantic High, and now they're in a 3,500 square foot building. with multiple facilities and so many people in the community that's just involved in it. So thank you very much. That's your dedication.